My name is Georgia Frew, and I am part of the Gosford Emerging Artists Biennale this year. And this is my work called Feel This. I made this work as an opportunity for me to experience a process of emotional catharsis. And it's an interaction between the effects of place, objects, and movement or performance, and how those things combined can create a process of catharsis, of like moving through an experience and embodying it in a way that allows you to shift it from inside of you to outside of you somehow in the world. And I chose these three different places for three different reasons. The first is the desert in Wilcannia. And so that place I had never been to personally, but had heard about many, many times in stories from other artists, other friends visiting, and also having been sort of following the process of the Darling River and the tragedy that's been occurring there, and that river is now dead. And so I was drawn to that place. I wanted to experience what it would be like to be there. And so as I processed how I was feeling about that, I came up with this idea for the costume, which is constrictive and has this long sort of aggressive beak. And it reflected how it sort of was feeling to think about what that land was going through. And it's also an experience of being alienated in a landscape. That's not my country. And I went into the town to try and find some people that I could talk to permission being there. And I talked to some locals, and eventually I sort of found this one man who was living in this little house, and he told me that he'd been living there for a couple of years, and he was a white man. So I was directed to this man living in this place, and he told me that now that it was owned by the farmer, I could go, and that was it. So that was a little bit disappointing, but nonetheless it was a potent experience, and that was the idea. And then the Pitt Street costume and performance was supposed to be an embodiment of anxiety more than anything. I find overcrowded places and like the glaring face of capitalism quite overwhelming, and I wanted to make something that reflected that experience. And so the porcelain spines around my face make this really disarming sound, and the crocheted mask over my face sort of constricts my breathing. And I also have the porcelain pieces across my chest, so every movement is reflected by a sound, and then that sound makes me feel something. And so the performance is intuitively created around that. And the third one is on my family home's front veranda. And each one of these pieces is made from strips of my old clothing from when I was a child that I cut up and sewed together. And it's sort of like a narrative of me growing up in that place, experiencing these objects in a new form, and then intuitively performing with and around them